Hey, welcome everyone. We are live at the Community Roots Garden in Oxnard, California, under the aguacate tree. This special plática is a joint collaboration between RAMA Blueprints podcast and the Que Madre podcast from Ventura County. And we're coming together for a conversation titled Under the Avocado Tree, La Matriarquía Salvando Community Roots Garden. The Matriarchy Saving Community Roots Garden. Today we explore the garden as a sanctuary for healing and transformation, a place where we reclaim agency through indigenous traditions and a deep connection to the land. We'll dive into the heart of radical mothering and matriarchy, discussing how leadership is rooted, service honors the collective over the self. We'll address the current state of the garden, which is at risk of closing due to transitions with the land's ownership. We'll discuss the urgent organizing efforts to maintain this sanctuary, which has impacted this community. From providing over 1,000 servings of fresh produce to fostering a safe space for marginalized communities, this garden has become a place where healing, belonging, and resilience are grown every day. Co-hosting with me today, and I'm so honored to be sharing this micrófono, this conversation, is Ana Rosa Rizzo-Santino. Ana Rosa, welcome.
The honor is so mutual. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Socorro. Collaboration is the heartbeat of our survival, rooted in the matriarchal wisdom that our strength lies in, how we care for one another. By joining forces, we amplify the voices of those whose lives have been transformed by this very soil, honoring a lineage of stewardship that transcends mere ownership. Our ancestors are alive here. This isn't just about saving a plot of land. It's about organizing to maintain a sanctuary for our community and ensuring that our commitment to organic practices and biodiversity continues to thrive. When we collaborate, we prove that our power lies in our collective resistance. To start our conversation, let's look at the firsthand impact of this space. We have guests with us today whose lives were transformed by these rows of crops. People for whom this is not just a garden, but a lifeline for mental health and cultural survival. So let's introduce our guests, comadres, comrades, and land stewards. Our first guest is Jenny Lynn Tumalad Bailon. Jenny Lynn Tumalad Bailon is a mother, activist, and cultural worker who has dedicated her career and studies to supporting individual artists and communities of color to build capacity and ownership over the rights to creativity and cultural abundance. She built the foundation of her practice driving change within arts and cultural institutions and outside in community-founded DIY projects. She studied socially engaged art and museum education and worked in artist, college, and family programs at museums in New York City and Los Angeles, including the Museum of Modern Art and J. Paul Getty Museum. She established herself as a curator of Filipinx American art, curating exhibitions in collaboration with Filipinx artists as a practice of sharing power, protest, and healing from her experiences in the art world, showcasing work in galleries such as Human Resources, LA and the Music Center, LA. Regardless of title and institution, she has always focused her passions in supporting historically oppressed individuals and their communities in creating spaces and artwork that are for them, by them, and completely on their own terms. Since 2022, she has worked at the Center for Cultural Innovations, Advocacy, Research and Incubation Program, Research to Impact Lab, as a program officer, where she managed relationships, experiments, and investments that aim to fundamentally shift social and economic conditions such that diversity, culture, and self-determination can flourish. Throughout her tenure at CCI, she managed various reports including community ownership and self-determination with the Urban Institute and Re-envisioning Retirement, a spectrum of interventions and community care, with Funders for Justice, and was chosen to present at various conferences including Netroots Nation, Grantmakers in the Arts, and Peak Grant Making. In February 2026, to more fully embody her activism as a mother, she shifted from her role as program officer to an as-needed special projects officer for CCI, reviewing and conducting research. She is based in Oxnard, California, where she is a proud co-founder of the Circle for Radical Mothering, hosted at Community Roots Garden, a dedicated space for birthing bodies to create the village they deserve, grounded in values of social justice, feminism, and decolonization. Most days you can find her looking for a good swing and lush lawn to play with her son, Jaime.
Thank you. Wow. Beautiful. Well, I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce a compañera, a colleague, just a right-on human being that I've gotten to know here at the garden. So also joining us is Zulema Jimenez, lovingly known as Zuli, an indigenous woman of Mayan descent. She's first generation born and raised in Oxnard, which is Chumash territory. We must acknowledge that. And she is a mom. She's the mother to Shiknal. She's also a member of the Radical Mothering group. And she is an organizer, an activist, an artist, a muralista. She's a doula birth worker. And she currently serves as one of the main land stewards of the Community Roots Garden. She received her bachelor's in 2013 in public health with a minor in holistic studies at San Francisco State University, and was a member of the San Francisco State University track team. And so that's important to note. And in 2017, she completed her full spectrum doula training through La Matriz Birth Services and various birth worker trainings. She continues to learn from BIPOC doulas to offer better her doula care. She does yoga, self-services, and Suli has reconnected to her culture and the ancient ways of being in community with each other and land. By providing these types of cultural arts workshops, she creates conversations that reconnects us to various ancestral practices through art while working with the land. As an interdisciplinary artist, her practice is deeply rooted in the intersection of art, healing, and community. Welcome. Welcome, Zuli and Jenny Lynn. So to get the conversation started on it, we came up with a question for both of you. And just take your time, answer the question. Either one of you can go first. So let's begin the conversation. Can you share a bit about your journey and how you became connected to community work, the garden, and advocacy? Why don't we start with you, Zuli?
A bit about my journey and how I got involved with community in general has to do with just family or lack of community within family is, I think, what struck me as like seeking it, and maybe in not the most healthy ways at the time, because I was seeking it in relationships, but not in it was like a more codependent, it was a partnership. I was trying to seek community through there at a very young time in my life, and then experienced that. I went off to the Bay, and like Socorro shared, I did a lot of running. Running is the only reason why I even went to school, because I consider myself smart, but I was not like a book smart person. I was very relationship oriented, so my teachers loved me, principals, stuff like that, great relationships, and that's how come I could ditch my classes to go to a quote unquote race or to go but anyways, that's what got me into just health, and I also always had stomach issues. I suffered from there was just a lot of trauma in my life when I was little, and I think my body didn't digest it well, and so therefore it became a lot of like stomach issues all my life. Pretty much I was at the doctors. I started going into like mental health and therapies from when I was like 11. I was suicidal at like 7. It was, again, like just a little glimpse, I guess, of a lot of emotions that I was going through that propelled me into where I'm at now. I'm grateful for all of that. But that's actually why I studied public health in the first place, because these doctors weren't figuring it out for me. They were just I was a guinea pig, just giving me pills. And I was like, why? It's just kind of bringing those feelings back again of not, just not wanting to be in this realm. And then so I started to delve into holistic health, and then I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the root. These are this is the foundational aspect. This is where they derive all of these pills that they were giving me from. So why don't I just go back to here? And maybe it's going to take a little longer, but whatever. And then I remember I also had a miscarriage at that time, because I was married at the time. And it just seemed to be the the trajectory of what you do in life, quote unquote. You get together with someone, you marry, you get a cat or a dog to kind of like, once you guys move in, and then it's the baby, right? So I got pregnant, and I was like, but at the time the person was not wanting it, and I was shook because I was like, what, that 10 years? Like, this is what happens. What do you mean? And I was grateful. That baby came and went away at 10 weeks, and I got to experience a little bit of what being pregnant was. And it also aided in relieving me from my codependency of this person and this type of dynamic that I was seeking to save myself in a type of way from. And then from there, I went through a whole divorce and just a lot of things. And I never really had female friends, but thankfully there was like a circle of girls, or like the girls groups were starting to happen. And I was very blessed that, I got to grow in that kind of space and with different people. And then through that, it was a lot of girls. And then obviously coming from like cattiness and not having girls groups all growing up to like all of a sudden, as we're like in our early 20s, maybe early 30s, all of that, like we had this girl group. Obviously there was like cliques, there was just like certain energies that just drifted together a little bit more than others. And then after that, I think I ended up finding my way into like more reading groups and like I didn't talk about like my divorce and stuff. I was just kind of like, well, we're supposed to, like, this person, I understood it as I could either talk shit about this person, or I could just like, this is the cards that I'm dealt with, and this person is in community with me, and I obviously love this person at the time. And now I'm at a point where I will always forever love this person. I'm not in love with them. I'm never gonna go back to that type of dynamic of my life, but I could openly say like I definitely love this person. And we're grown now, and we're able to be in like community. I want to say now it's been like 15 years now, but that definitely helped me out a lot. And again, when I had that miscarriage at 10 weeks, thankfully Jenny Luna was offering a course for doula. And I was on my way to the Zapatistas, to a Caracol over there, and they were having the very first Encuentro de Mujeres, where like 5,000 women came, and it was a very amazing experience, where I also had a workshop where I went back into the womb and I kind of birthed it myself. And like, so it was like it was very, very spiritual and healing for me. And then when I got back, I was literally in the airport we were waiting for a ride so that we could get from LA back to Oxnard. And Jenny Luna, I think it was Instagram days already. So we were on Instagram, and then I seen that she had a post of like, if you want to be a doula, if you want to support babies and da-da-da. And I was like, well, I'm not a student. And I called her phone number. I think she was on there. And I was like, hey, I'm not a student, but can I please take this course? I promise I'm going to give back to like the community. And she was, without a doubt, she's like, yes, of course you can. And so myself and then another friend, Ruby, also attended. And so we went through the trainings over here at CSUCI. And then again, it was just, I feel very blessed. And that's why I take this lifestyle, I guess, so serious. And it is a lifestyle. It's not just like trying to do like a work type of dynamic. But literally I came back because I was... they were having a women's circle back when Alma Rose first opened up out in Wainimi, which was another little wonderful space for community to gather and do dancing, yoga, different art events and stuff. And they were having a moon circle or something, and it was like women. And so I was like, oh, I kind of need to come back to like women, and maybe I can, make some more foundational friends and stuff. So I came, and then literally in that circle, the person across from me was like, I'm pregnant and I need a support, and I've just been seeking and this, and I was just like, well, I'm literally in the training right now, so if I could I was like, I will offer, like, if I could offer whatever I have learned and whatever, like, I like for free, like, I don't want to, if you're down. And then she was super down and amazing. And the little one's name is Luna, a wonderful, beautiful little being, and their mother as well. I'm very grateful for them, always will be. I hold them very close and near to my heart because they gave me that opportunity. And then from there, it's always kind of been word of mouth. And so that's how I've delved into that community care work, I guess. And then when it came to the garden, it was also through studying. It was also through studying addiction. We were in group studies with our dear friend Mark, who passed away. And he is a big reason as to, again, why I am where I'm at, too. Mm-hmm. And we studied addiction, and we read a lot of Gabor Mate, which love. If you have not heard of Gabor Mate, please look him up now. In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, as well as there's another book about parenting that's amazing. I can't think about it, but hopefully we can add a link to it after.
Yeah, there we go.
But just started a book called The Myth of Normalcy by Gabor Mate, too.
Yeah. Amazing. He's an amazing, and he interconnects everything together. Yeah. So again, it's crazy that I went from studying addiction in the Realm of Hungry Ghosts to we went to the next book after that. Literally, we were like, makes sense. Soulfire Farm, Farming While Black, because the root of addiction comes from lack of land, comes from stripping us of any kind of sovereignty, any kind of freedom, any kind of creativity, to just even our nervous system to like have the capacity to like imagine, is a huge deal. So that's a little bit of how I got into this work. We can get even deeper and go into more tangents, but I think that's enough.
Thank you for sharing that, Zuli. It's very inspiring, and it's always interesting because we work together, and we spend a lot of time talking and harvesting, and they already know I don't like to weed, but I will weed
because it's needed.
It's all needed
always.
But to hear the story, right, and to see how people's journey to get here, so I appreciate that. Just to let people know that are going to be listening to the show, Jenny Luna is Dr. Jenny Luna, who teaches at Cal State Channel Islands, and also is the jefa for danza. The name of the danza group is I forget the name. What is it? It's not Shikowat. It's something like we'll get the right name.
I will.
We'll get the right name.
Yes.
Because Shikowat's in San Francisco. Shout out to the Bay. Anyway,
Bay Area.
So our next is we have Jenny. You want to tell us, answer the question? Do I need to repeat it?
Yes.
Okay. So what got you here? What led you through this? What's been the journey to doing community work, advocacy, and the current work you're doing now?
Yeah, thank you for that, for repeating, really. I am almost 9 months postpartum, so it's fresh and it's new, and I'm feeling very emotional, even just hearing you talk about the name of this podcast, and Zuli, hearing how you have arrived to this moment, because there are a lot of parallels, I'd say. I think I paused to write one thing down, because I think something that struck me in hearing your story is that feels very resonant to mine, is just how much I'd say my story has been characterized by interrogating the shoulds in my life and coming to that place of whoa, I did everything that, I was actually a total nerd in school. I was 4.0, all the AP classes. I did everything that I'm Filipino, born in the Philippines, Bataan. Yeah. Bataan baby. And I grew up in a very, very predominantly white community, suburb community outside of Seattle. Kitsap County, even smaller. If you know the area, Silverdale, the only thing there is
familiar.
A mall.
Very familiar.
So I spent a lot of my time, rainy days, in the mall, trying on prom dresses, and wanting what I feel like I wasn't cognizant of was I was aspiring to what I now call whiteness in many ways. So I went to the University of Washington, and I actually went there, first convinced my parents to allow me to go there by pursuing first pharmacy, because that's the only way they would let me go to school. And then I was like, just kidding, I'm doing the arts. Because there's what Filipino parent would let their daughter study the arts?
Somewhat familiar. Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, so I kind of did a really quick bait and switch on my parents a year into my studies. And, I think as many folks who pursue a career that does not have a very clear path, they kind of figure it out, and they are not ushered in with privilege. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I think I got to just follow what feels right, or what people are telling telling me to do. So when I went into the arts, I kind of just, honestly, like, if you know the Seattle area, it's a very DIY area, and I was really, really embedded in the DIY, like, music scene. So my high school boyfriend was in a band, toxic, but sorry, hopefully he doesn't hear this. But I was grateful for, like, the DIY scene. That's how I started to kind of dip my toe and start to understand, like, spaces that are created by people because they need it. I wasn't cognizant of it, but I realized how much I loved it. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was cool. It was like, wow, actually, this is where my heart sings. But that's not a job, right? You just do this because you love it. You have a good time. And so when I was working in the arts, it was very much just like, wow, you're amazing. Like, you can help get us funds. You're, again, like, kind of a type A type of, like, I'm going to hustle. Ooh, internalized capitalism. But I'm going to hustle. And they were like, you know what? You got, like, no chill. Why don't you just go to New York? And I was like, okay, I guess I go to New York. So it was a lot of, like, blindly leading, like, following what people were telling me and doing the shoulds. So I was like, okay, so I guess what is success? And proving to my parents that what I did and all of the sacrifices that they made was worth it. It is, I guess, going and working at one of the biggest museums in New York, I guess. So I went and I was like, I do that. I just go do that. I went to New York, and then I found myself, as I was pursuing some sort of institutional acclaim, whatever that success, quote unquote, would feel like and what would be that was whenever I started getting a lot of panic attacks, was when I was in New York. And at that same time, while pursuing my graduate degree,
can I just stop you for a second? Because people who have not had a panic attack, it's important for you to know what it feels like. You literally feel like you're gonna die, and to have it happen to you multiple times, like, not cute.
It's really not cute. I literally, I'd be like breaking down in the middle of New York, and I was just like, I must just be, like, kind of tired. Like, what's going on? And I was one of the only people of color in my entire program. Mm-hmm. I was working at multiple museums, doing a lot of grunt work, but not cognizant and seeing that the people telling me what to do were white. The people teaching me were white. The studies I was pursuing, white canon. Again, still not conscious. And then at that same time, my parents moved back to the Philippines, and I lost my anchor. I always thought, I was like, well, I'd go back to Washington, be with my family. And when I realized, I was like, okay, I started seeing a therapist, because they were like, listen, just see a therapist. You're breaking down, girl, because you get some help, which I think many of us can probably relate. Yeah. Like, what? You ask for help? Like, you can accept help? So I went, got help, and what actually ended up, I thought I was going to get help with, like, time management. Instead, so much of it was my culture. And I started to really realize and just have the consciousness raising that was so crucial of, like, oh my God, like, as I am working, sure, you're working at MoMA, you're working at Getty, but what does it mean when you are complicit in bringing Black and brown communities to get fundraised off of, to exhibitions that are not of them and tell them is most important? What does that even matter? You are complicit in your erasure. You're complicit in almost like betraying your communities. So I'm getting shaky because it just brings me back. But it really, I was like, well, fuck. I just got into so much student debt to prove that I was pursuing something successful, to make my parents proud, to make it that these last, how many years? I spent 6 years, undergrad and graduate program. This was worth it, right? And here I am. So I'm going to now skip forward. I moved to LA because I got a job at the Getty. I'm at the Getty, and 2016, what happened in 2016? Trump was elected. That was like the biggest, like, wow, Jenny, holy. So the day I went to work, the next day after Trump was elected at the Getty, I I went on a docent tour, and the docent said, J. Paul Getty was pretty much like Trump.
Wow.
And I was like, I can't do this. Why am I doing all of this? Like, what is this all for? I thought arts was for people who care. And arts, don't get me wrong, I love the arts. There's a beautiful side, and then there's the capital A institution, privileged,
That's right.
horrible, I'm going to sell your culture side. And I was like, I'm doing it for the other thing, but whoa, I'm drowning in this other thing. So what do I do? And that's when I started to like curate my own exhibitions, get connected with the Filipino American arts community. I started to be like, fuck this. How do I change from the institution within? This is just not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a quote by Buckminster Fuller, who is like a big, like kind of radical artist person, where he talks about, I'm not going to say it perfectly, but he talks about like how it's not making change within an institution is the thing to do. Sure, people can try, but you build something outside of the institution that is so great that it makes everything existing obsolete. And I feel like I hold that to my heart now, like so deeply. And it's just, I started to be like, I need to understand these structures. What are these institutions? Why are things happening the way that they are? Because every place I go is the same problem. And thankfully, I found myself in a like pretty like-minded space at Center for Cultural Innovation. I'm speaking very much on just as me, not them. But I got myself there, and at CCI, like there's a lot of people who are just like, F this, like we need to Trojan horse the situation and try and change the institutions. And all of that felt amazing until I got pregnant. And then now I hate to say that it feels amazing until I got pregnant, but I think, as I said, I'm 8-9 months postpartum. I'm still becoming right now. And I think what's really interesting as I have become a mom is that I've never felt so much more embodiment of social justice in everything that I'm trying to create, because mothering is an art. And as I've tried to create cultural change, culture comes from mothering. And I think like coming to this garden, we have a little group chat with our Circle for Radical Mothering group. And my co-founder Sylvia brought up a quote that I love from Adrienne Marie Brown, talking about how we're in imagination battle right now. And what is most special about this garden and this space is that you can't imagine yourself outside of capitalism or white supremacy or patriarchy when you are deep in it. And that's why being connected to the land and being able to step out is amazing. So,
yes, since you spoke about the Radical Mothering Circle, I feel like that's our entry point to really talk about how the Radical Mothering Circle has flourished in this space and why it's flourishing in this space, and to also express gratitude for you and Sylvia for starting the space.
So you guys, let's talk a little bit more about the Radical Moms and the Radical Mothering and its work and how it's been integrated into the garden. I was thinking as you were speaking, Jenny and Zulia, I'm the kind of person that draws a lot of circles and connects them and figure out, and at the center of it is the heart. And I started thinking about trauma, and thinking also about, and I'm glad you brought up the panic, anxiety attacks, anxiety experiences. And oftentimes from these traumas and these anxiety experiences that we have, something grows positive out of it. And so as we're all experiencing our own journey and moving through it and trying to figure out, and I have a lot of friends like you that are in my age group that did what you did. They were either at the Getty. I know if our co-producer, Aztec Parrot, Darren, lived in New York for a while, and I understand that experience. One of the things that I think is really important is how we don't sell ourselves out. And so looking at that, what holds you steadfast in this part of your journey now, where you don't compromise your integrity, where you're still, some people call it marching to the drum, to the beat, but keeping steadfast on the journey that you're on now. looking at everything that's we're experiencing under this fascist regime and what we're living. But how do you stay true to that still? And including being a mom, including postpartum. I don't know what that feels like, but I have like 7 sisters, and 5 of them have all had kids, so I know that experience through them. But let's create that conversation right now. So how are you still continuing to do this work, and what's keeping you grounded during this time? Just jump in. It's like we're just sitting down at the coffee shop. You know?
I thank you for everything that you shared and bringing us to this moment now. I think both of you also for having this. I think kind of how Jenny Lynn was sharing, it's like we are kind of becoming like in entre todas, because for example, the garden was something that I was already a part of before I became a mom, and I already knew that it was super important, because it is our mother, but it felt like just a more, I can't even explain it. It's just like this thing that like there's no question about it kind of thing. And then I got pregnant, and I was pregnant all throughout this garden, had my maternity photos and everything shot here, went through the grief of it not working out how things intended, but 3 months postpartum, because of things not working out as intended, I was blessed to be welcomed back into work, which is also very excuse my language, but I was about to cuss, of how unrealistic it is to expect anybody to be coming back to work, okay? But this was also like my mental health aid. And then again, as I kind of explain, like the journey is just not as we expected it to be sometimes, and the partners are just not there, the community is just not there, the infrastructure is not there, and so I had to come out and create it. And then Fatima and myself had already started the Birth Workers Collective, and because we were both like around the same time delving into supporting others in their journey, because we'd gone through like some sort of loss, we'd gone through some sort of like glimpse of the journey, and so we were there to support others. And then we got our turn in the journey. It was first Fatima's turn, and then I thankfully very blessed that I got to support her in the ways that I got to, and then she got to support me incredibly once I was pregnant, and for that is like divine timing, and like I am so grateful to Creator for all of that. And then we've been since been able to create together. And then it got to the point where both Fatima and myself are like, we're in the like midst of it, you know, like they're toddler ages, our babies now. And so then they require more attention. And then also society, where it's at financially and all that, it requires more sustenance. So then we have to have more output as mothers, whether it is to create more financial security, or our kids are starting to go to school, so you're having to think of all these different things that maybe we didn't think we were going to have to think about, because we figured we would have like the new world created by now. But obviously it's becoming. And then to have Jenny Lynn and this group of mothers, and Daisy she was Alma Rose, so like again, it's just like the divineness of how it's all been connected and been kind of in the works without me even knowing, is beautiful. And again, Fatima and I don't want to say that we're depleted, but it's like we did what we needed to, and then now Jenny Lynn and like all these other moms are now coming, and it's almost like we're able to now we're able to take in now, and we're able to kind of reflect and be and share like the wisdom and stuff. Like for example, last week we had Fatima come in, and she shared so much, and then but it's a beautiful way of like where whoever is sharing is not because like that they're all knowing or anything. It's just because they're just being so vulnerable and raw that it's like, here's this, like let's all be vulnerable and raw and heal together and share. And to be able to do that on a piece of land, like, you know, your feet touching the land, your kids playing with the dirt, playing with sticks, you don't have to worry too much, is super amazing.
I mean, everything you're describing right now is the antidote to everything we're seeing in the world right now with Epstein files and Trump, and knowing that if women had been governing,
So good.
caretaking for our communities this whole time, the Epstein files would have never happened, right? And so, what is your view on how matriarchy can heal the world?
Jenny?
Yeah, I can definitely answer that. It's funny you bring that up, as in matriarchy. I've been sitting with it because I closed out my therapeutic relationship that was very specific for my postpartum. And one of the last sessions we talked about, I had kind of made this reference where I was like, oh yeah, my husband, he's got like a million tias here. My husband's Mexican. A million tias.
She's married to a Mexican.
Yes. And I was like, yeah, it's very matriarchal. And my therapist was actually like, is it that they are actually replicating the patriarchy with women, or is it matriarchal? And I was like, wow, thank you for that interrogation. And then I started to like dive deeper into matriarchies and matriarchal societies because of that. And matriarchal societies, unlike patriarchal societies, which are top-down domination, matriarchal societies are circular with nurture and care at the center. And so much of our world's problems are because of some white imagination of domination and extraction. And with matriarchal societies, centering and having a circular power, it decenters humans as the most important too. We start to dismantle speciesism and think more about how, wait a minute, we and our futures are connected. And while you were mentioning in your intro talking about like having girl groups and like, wait, I don't F with you, but also this is your journey. And I think like I'm going to bring it back here where it's like oftentimes we get frustrated because we're like, oh my God, why can't I, I need to meet them where they're at, but come on. And matriarchal societies push us that we're like, actually, we can't totally sit with the isolation and the F this.
Right.
We actually need to bring each other along. And that is how we're going to heal everything.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I think let's connect this conversation as you talk about círculos and you talk about circles, about the garden, right? And how it all is interconnected here. Currently the garden faces a situation where it is very top down. It is very patriarchal. And I think I wanted to give Zuli the opportunity to at least just talk a little bit about where the garden is at, where are we moving towards, and what are some of the, the issues, and how might that impact a group like Radical Mothering? How is it going to impact, and not just that, but some of the other groups that are currently here. But thank you for bringing that up about círculos. I also want you to take into consideration that the Zapatista foundational principles are identified through the work here. And I'm thinking of Radical Moms and the grupos of the Zapatista women and the work they've been doing there in all those círculos. So thank you for continuing to do that. Zuli?
See, something to highlight about the Zapatista moms, they're always carrying their babies around when they're doing all these círculos, so that's also something beautiful. So the garden is a wonderful space, a very needed space for so many, including all the people that tend it daily. And so where the garden is currently, it's a ministry under the church. It is a United Methodist Church here in Oxnard, in the north side of Oxnard. And we're just under this church. So then there's restrictions, there's limitations, there's all of that to the imagination. And so as of now, they've stopped church services because they're just not getting enough folks to come in with COVID, and just a lot of factors that kind of played into their where they're at financially, I think, as far as we know. And so since then, they've been just trying to figure out development, like what to do with the garden space, or with the building itself. We haven't been in dialogue too much, and so that's why we asked for this dialogue. We asked for some clarity. We asked for some transparency, because it puts, just like Socorro shared, it puts the circles of radical mothering. It puts even mini nature. It puts the Channel Islands restoration. It puts the birth workers. It puts all of the gardeners here in a very uncertain, unpredictable space. And that causes crazy anxiety in an already crazy society right now where that's all we're feeling. Where this space has in the past brought peace and comfort. It's kind of creating disharmony now, not knowing what can happen. And so, for example, the higher ups are like that maybe they're going to open up farm worker housing. Maybe there's going to be First Five or some kind of, those are like really raw ideas from years ago. But there's no certainty again. And so as of now, what we do know is that at the end of March, the church services will end. And then it's uncertain what will happen with the garden. They tell us like, oh yeah, don't worry, the garden isn't going to get necessarily shut down yet, but they just say yet. And then, yes, exactly. And then,
yet.
Exactly. And so Adriana and myself have been studying. Like I said, we used to do study groups and different things. And Adriana has also taken it upon her throughout the whole time that we've been here to stay on top of like, oh, what's happening to all these other garden spaces. Out in San Diego, there used to be a community roots farm. Out in Oakland, she went to go visit some other farms. And then we've gone to different spaces and farms and stuff that are under church ministries or in a similar predicament that we're in. And the history has been the same. The pattern has been the same. The land gets taken at some point in time because there is no contract there. And even with the contracts, I mean, look at the treaties, right? So, it's just the need for this unclarity that we've been sitting on. And for example, myself and Adriana have been getting emails of like, hey, we want to do this mutual aid project. Hey, we want to do these things, like amazing things that this space is perfect for, but we can't give the yes or no because we don't know what the fuck is happening. We don't know, and we don't want to, no queremos quedar mal, because that takes a lot of time. That takes like, planning these events are not light. It's not just like a gathering on a Saturday. It's like we're taking into account very vulnerable situations, very vulnerable people, very taxed out people who are just giving. And so it sucks, to say the least. And we would really like to have a bunch of people here on the 28th, which is tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We do have a few folks that have already sent in their letters. We've printed them out because we're going to be putting them up on the walls for them to see. And then we hope that they get to hear us out. We're hoping that we get to hear them out because first off, they haven't shared an agenda, which is hella unprofessional, and secondly, very like what's going on, again, pattern of uncertainty still here. And so we don't also know if we are going to get to all speak. We don't know if everyone's going to get to share their voice, but we do want to make sure that we're going to have some note cards. We're going to have ways to compile all the stories and the shares so that they do take them home. And like, you got homework to do, you got homework to read, so that they don't even fathom the idea of giving this to any sort of development. And so that they could just rationalize in their very rational minds that I'm hoping they have. Because they have it laid out in their own UMC agreements and stuff where they give the land back to indigenous people. There's community here that have been cultivating it. There's community here that have been showing up and that can take care of this space. If they can't take care of it, why don't just give it to people who can, is basically my personal ask. But as a collective ask, it's just more so just showing up so that they know how important it is. Sharing the stories. There's people who've gone to kinder here. This used to be a preschool, Strawberry Patch preschool, or preschool, excuse me, not kinder. And then there's neighbors that are going to be coming down because they use this space to bring their children. They've painted on the mural with us. It's a big, important space, including 300 people or more a month that come to get their food, thanks to My Cup. And Food Share that partnered up here and used the space. they like, what's going to happen to that, and there's already uncertainty with ice and everything, and this seems to be the safest space that we've been able to cultivate for everybody to be able to come in and not only just come and get their food, but they get access to knowing that, oh, there's food that we could grow here, there's a space for me, there's a space for us to come and have a picnic, or for my kids to run around while we're waiting from freaking 6 o'clock in the morning to get our food till like 10. It's crazy that they don't think of these things or these people and the effects that it'll have. There's therapists that come here and they bring their clients here. Like, I would like to have my therapy here. I'm grateful that I have therapy in general, but it's beautiful that they get to kind of weed out as they're weeding out their problems, and like it's like a somatic exercise right here. And then just somebody said like that they can't imagine a world without community roots or something. And so that has definitely stayed and yeah, it's going to stay in my head. And that's, moving forward, I think that's what it is.
I think one thing that it touches my heart being here now 6 years is seeing how young people have been coming from probation. My background has a lot of years working with gang identified kids and working with all those oppressive systems in the city. And then seeing the results of when you do expose young people to these type of adventures. Both Darren and I, when we ran that high school in San Francisco, it was real critical that we took them out, right? I was telling the story about taking them to the apple orchards and up in Sonoma, and just the freedom that they felt. But talk a little bit about what that has been like for some of the young people that have come from juvenile probation. So folks know about that. This space is also transformational.
Yes, it's very transformational, and it's we don't have the same judgment as other spaces would have, because again, we're thinking of in a transformational phase that if you're here to change. You're not trying to like stay the same. And so and we all make mistakes. So there's definitely youth that come by here that are in probation, and they've enjoy it. They love it. We get into talking about a lot more than just like what's going on here. And some of them don't even like touching the soil. They don't like touching nothing, and that's fine. That's fine. Like, we find another, we meet each other where we're at, and then they still enjoy. And it's like, dude, as long as you're out here, wouldn't you rather be out here and talking to, like, tell us what happened, how'd you get here? And then there's also even like adults that are in probation as well, and there's not a lot of spaces or places that will accept them to do their hours and stuff. And a lot of them are undocumented folks, or there's some folks that just don't speak the same language, and so then this space offers that aid, and then we try to work with you even if we're only here like a couple times out of the week. We'll designate you with, like, for example, Don Adiel, who's here every day, and so then that's how we try to help each other out, because sometimes they give them really unrealistic timelines to meet their probation hours, and it's like, well, okay, how do we help each other out? How do I know that you're like, when we figure out a plan, we're very realistic to what they need to meet, but also realistic to the reality of what they're living and where they're at, and mental health wise. And we also have our houseless population here, Jesse, who was like our very first person that introduced us to this space more so. He would always be here, and there was this like idea that like, oh no, houseless people go over there, and it's like, what the I don't know where in community you've been where like the society doesn't create houselessness. It's not like this person came out of nowhere and that they chose to be this way. And then they would always he always brought us gifts, and sometimes he was very aware also, this person in particular, he was very aware of like, I can't talk to you right now, like I just have all these voices, or I have all these things. And it was like the most, again, the vulnerable, the rawness of like being able to like experience life and like be there for each other in our most, coming back to like mothering, it's like when it's an ugly journey sometimes, and when someone's not there to like support and like nourish and nurture you, it's scary. So that's kind of like how it is like with our more vulnerable populations.
I think when I think about the cempasúchil, the marigold, and especially around Muertos, and I want to bring it back to, I know that's kind of Ana, the way you got here, right? Maybe you can share that, because I know we're kind of getting to that point where we might end the conversation. But just to kind of bring it full circle, when you think of the cempasúchil and the marigold, it's how I got here. And I work with some of those young people as we're harvesting the marigolds, and it's like, for me, just as you were experiencing and, going back to those times, and I think it's what a blessing it has been to see these young people transform and come here. And, even if they have their little stupid thing around their ankle, but they're still here and they're connecting. And I remember the first time I met the Radical Moms was under that tree right over there. And there was a plática, a dialogue with the maestras, with Yolanda Porcayo and Lupita Sares, and they were here, and they're from Mexico, from Huitzilac, and they're healers, and you were having a plática, and I was listening to the moms talk about their relationships with their moms and their dads, and such a beautiful experience. I wondered if you could, what would that mean? What is that connection and having that space to have those kind of conversations here? How does that impact, and what if it doesn't happen, but how would you see it going forward if it did continue to happen here?
Well, I'll speak to the importance of having it here.
Yeah.
If you look around Oxnard, I live in Oxnard, where I started my family in Oxnard. Where are the, what you call, like, third spaces? The spaces between house and work. Where are they? The collection, roads, maybe there are sidewalks. I live in El Rio. And so, again, I think I hope this just kind of hammers it home how important this green space and plot of soil is, that you can step out from the daily grind and be hugged by this garden, this breeze, this tree, and also the community as well. And I think, like, there is a very different conversation that we have when we are in this garden versus when we do have some meetups every once in a while outside of the garden. We'll be like, okay, someone meet up with me at the collection. I need someone to talk to. And we'll meet up there, and it's a very different conversation because you're surrounded by commerce, and like again, there's a huge importance of removing yourself and being hugged by what we're supposed to be hugged by, which is the land. I don't think that the time that you met us, we were doing our altar, and it was just so powerful to be able to, like, bring up our ancestors and how much they also live on in the way that we mother and continue on and heal trauma and continue to grow into our power as we unlearn what has been forced down our throats with capitalism and patriarchy and all the isms. So, yeah.
No, it was a beautiful experience for me. I know I was kind of standing on the outside, and the maestras go, "Come on, Socorro." And I go, I'm not a mom. She goes, "Métete." So I had to get in the middle. I wanted to give Ana just a moment to kind of bring us full circle, but also how you got here too, Ana, because I think that's really, really important to talk about. So you want to just share a bit?
Well, you all probably don't know this because you're facing this way, but almost the whole time you've been speaking, there's been a monarch butterfly flying behind you. And my firstborn daughter, Adelita, passed away on her third day of life, and butterflies are kind of like her connection to me. And before she passed away, it was not really a custom for me to build altars on a regular basis. But building an altar is really what helped me get through the loss of her. And so this community roots garden is where I started getting cempasúchil flowers for her altar, and it's what kind of lured me here. But since I've been lured here, I've never wanted to stop coming here. And I just echo, and I think many of us said this at the organizing meeting the other night, that we cannot imagine a world without community roots garden, and also this sense of grief because so much has already been taken away. And so, especially when it comes to land. And so I think this is our community saying that we're drawing the line in the sand here and no more. You're not going to take any more land or anything away from us. And we're going to protect this land just as this land has protected us.
We will chain ourselves to the trees.
Literally.
I think it's just so important to also, even though we're sitting in this role as host and conversationalist, I think that it's important to talk about what we experience in our own journeys and what we go through to grow and to get here. And this has been something we've been wanting to do, to create these dialogues here in the garden. And so grateful that we made it happen. We're gonna close soon, but I think that we always, at least in the tradition for Rama, and just to give you a little background about how Rama got formed, is the Rama Blueprints grew out of COVID. Darren, I was sitting at home, and Darren and I were Zooming, and he introduced me to Zoom. I didn't know anything about that. And he goes, yeah, this is the way we can talk, and he's the tech guy. And 3 of my friends had passed away, not knowing that it was COVID. And my best friend Emilio was supposed to stop to see me in Oxnard, and he didn't stop. And a month later, I found out he had passed away in his home, and they had done a wellness check. And unfortunately, it was, pneumonia, COVID. And so I started telling Darren, we got to talk. What are we going to do? Because people are isolating. And he says, well, why don't we just do like a meetup on Zoom with all the people we worked with at RAP, and that's the Real Alternatives Program. So RAMA means the RAP Audio Media Archive. So from the Real Alternatives Program, the podcast began to archive the history of community activism in the Bay Area, specifically the Mission, and all the other neighborhoods that had worked in conjunction, in collaboration with the Real Alternatives Program. That specific program housed everybody. It didn't matter, people always say, oh man, Socorro must have been intense working with all those Chicano gang members. And I go, Chicanos? They were like Central American, Laotian, Filipino. I don't know about Chicanos, but everybody else was there. Because, San Francisco is that. And so I think that when we began to document the stories, I kept saying to Darren, we need to bring the story here and, talk about where we're from. Darren is from Riverside. And so it was just really critical to start bringing it. And obviously, out of a crisis, we created Rama out of this crisis now that we find ourselves under this regime of Trump, that we're responding. And this is the way we want to respond, to document the stories, document the history, archive it, and move it forward so people can hear this. And the young people, Jaime and Chiknal, the 7 generations that are upon us. I was very blessed many years ago to sit in a teepee meeting, and if familiar with teepee ceremony, to sit with the 7 grandmothers that came at the American Indian Center in the heart of the Mission District, which is a medical mental health clinic. And the 7 grandmothers said, it will be mothers. It will be the women that will lead us out of this. They predicted, they called forward what was going to happen, that there would be a man, that there would be that person, that there would be this disease of patriarchy that would take us down. But it needed to happen. But it will be the mothers. And I remember the grandmother from Alaska, she said, it will be the moms. And I was so privileged and honored to sit in there. And I just got asked because, I guess I'm a community leader. But
So humble.
and I say it because it was a very big honor, and now it's made full circle for me, and so now I find myself here. So just in closing, a palabra that you would want to leave, a thought, share some wisdom as people, as we close. We still normally ask, if you could talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to that person now? Or what thought do you want to leave? So either one. And then you too, Anna. Whoever wants to go.
I'm not going to answer that 18-year-old question. Just got out of therapy. So
we won't take you back there. Here.
But a thought and a share that came to mind after Jenny was sharing about, and you were sharing about the cempasúchiles, and so were you, and everything. It just made me think of like how the land also is working with us and like is also conspiring the connection because that little patch of area, like we didn't really pay attention to it too much. And I know Bill would sit there. He would sit here and he would sit over there. And then eventually when like the Dia de los Muertos came and the radical mothers was like, oh, where should we do a little altar and this and that, and I was like, well, maybe over there. And this is where we spent more time in a different type of area, but for some reason it happened over there. And then the maestras came. The maestras have they're very special. They've been involved in my life since before I was we did like medicine healing circles, and like before my grandma even moved in to, my mom's like the caretaker of my grandma and stuff. So it's amazing how, again, everything's conspiring with us. And so they came and they blessed the space. And then I think we've had a lot of like just honoring of our ancestors, that they're with us. And then Bill passed, unfortunately. And he now became an ancestor, fortunately. And then that's where his bench sits.
Yeah.
And nobody was like, oh, that's where it should go. It just happened. Like, that's where Gloria chose. This is where the radical mothers chose. This is where, like, everything has been, like, a sovereign choice, but also in a very united manner, a very healing. And I just feel like, yeah, there's no way. We got our ancestors. We got Bill. We got all these people on our sides. And we just got to call on them and, you know, call on ourselves and our inner strength, and yeah, believe that it can happen, just like that third space. Yeah, right. This is it.
Thank you for that. Jenny?
I think for me, something I've been meditating on, I am not going to answer the 18-year-old question either, but the nugget that I have been sitting with in my postpartum life, beginning, is just I've become so hyper aware of how early on American capitalist individualism and independence obsession starts, of like that you separate baby to sleep in a nursery and all of those things, that it's just the push for independence starts so early, and how much the thing that's been keeping me hopeful, because a lot of the fear that they use when they're like, raise your child to be independent, be independent, be independent. Even me, I need to be independent, whatever. They fearmonger you to thinking that the opposite of independence is actually dependence, and that's a bad thing. And that I have reframed that to the opposite of independence, and the thing that I'm going for is actually interconnectedness. If my child is raised and able to see that he is not just some isolated bootstraps like success, and is actually seeing that he is interconnected in his successes because of so many, not just people, but our land, the ecosystem, that is why he is where he will go, then I've done a good job. So that's what I'll share.
Thank you for that. Ana?
I'm going to be brave and answer the 18-year-old question. When I was a fresh woman at UC Santa Barbara, I came in as a business economics major. That's what I started off as. And definitely wanted to, climb some kind of ladder. And then I took my first Chicano studies course. And I was like, this is what I've been missing my entire life. Like, just such a sense of pride for my community and our families and what we've overcome to still be here. Like, colonization didn't take us out, and capitalism won't either. I can see a world beyond capitalism, and I'll tell that 18-year-old how proud I am of her for changing to being a Chicano Studies and Global Studies double major and trusting it, even though she didn't know what she was getting into at the time. And at the time, I was also in an abusive relationship. So just knowing that 18-year-old deserves so much better. And I'm trying to live out my life in a way that I can make not only my 18-year-old self, but my 5-year-old self, my 6-year-old self specifically, proud, because I also endured childhood sexual abuse. Like, you're going to come a long way, and you just got to trust the journey, and you're going to be surrounded by beautiful other women and elders who will hold you and help you get through it and help you help others. And that one day you're going to have 2 kids and you're going to be a mom, and it's the best job in the world. And I started Que Madre because I realized that this is the best job in the world, but it's also the hardest job in the world. And with Que Madre, we have tried to do some things in person beyond the radio show and the podcast. So when I saw that Jenny Lynn and Sylvia were doing the Radical Mothering Circle, it was like an answer to my prayers, because it's kind of like what we've been wanting to do since we started with Jess Alvarez Parfrey 7 years ago. So just wanted to thank you for your work, both of you, for your community work, for living out the beautiful like potential that you have, and the becoming, right? Because I think so much of capitalism is like, you got to get to this exact spot and that will make you a success. Whereas the real success is realizing that there's so much more in us that we're constantly becoming. No matter how old we get, we're always going to be becoming and growing, and that it's a community effort. So yeah, just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. We would like to thank you for listening to this episode of Under the Avocado Tree, La Matriarquía Salvando Community Roots Garden, produced by RAMA Blueprints Podcast and the Que Madre Podcast. A special thank you to Community Roots Garden, to Radical Moms, and to Radical Mothering, as well as the Oxnard Birth Workers and Que Madre Podcast, and all the folks that have given time here at this garden, especially the gardeners, the people that are here every day, Mini Nature Reserve, and a lot of our folks and friends. You can listen. This episode was produced by Socorro Gamboa, Ana Rosa Rizzo Centino, and our engineer today is DJ De Leon. And you can listen to the RAMA Blueprints and Que Madre wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, including everywhere that it streams, Apple, you name it. Just check it out. We will be there. Thank you again. Peace, love, and as we always say, to listen is to heal. All power to the people.